Money changes people faster than almost anything else on earth. Not because money itself is evil, but because money amplifies psychology. It exposes identity, fear, ego, insecurity, power, desire. And sometimes, the moment people gain money, their entire personality begins shifting almost immediately. Relationships change, behavior changes, confidence changes, morality changes. Even the way people walk into rooms can change. And the terrifying part? Most people believe they are immune to this effect. They think, if I became rich, I would stay exactly the same. But history suggests otherwise. Because money does something psychologically dangerous to the human brain. It changes perception, both how people see themselves and how they believe the world sees them. And once perception changes, behavior follows. One of the first things money changes is emotional security. A person living paycheck to paycheck experiences reality differently than someone with millions in the bank. Financial stress creates psychological pressure constantly. The brain becomes survival-oriented. Bills, rent, debt, unexpected emergencies. The nervous system stays alert. But when money suddenly removes those pressures, people often experience an immediate psychological shift. They feel more powerful, more confident, more visible, more important. And confidence itself changes behavior dramatically. A person with money may suddenly speak louder, take more risks, become more socially dominant, not necessarily because their personality changed, but because fear decreased. Money creates emotional cushioning, and emotional cushioning changes human behavior rapidly. But there is a darker side to this transformation, because money does not only reduce fear, sometimes it removes restraint. A kind person with no power may appear morally strong. But are they truly moral, or simply limited? Money increases options, and options reveal character. A person who suddenly becomes wealthy gains access to things they could never reach before. Luxury, influence, status, attention, control, and humans behave very differently once scarcity disappears. This is why some people become arrogant almost immediately after financial success. Because money affects social dynamics instantly. The moment someone becomes rich, people begin treating them differently. Friends listen more carefully. Strangers become friendlier. Romantic attention increases. Opportunities appear everywhere. And the human brain notices this extremely fast. Money creates social gravity. People orbit wealth, and eventually some wealthy individuals begin confusing financial value with personal value. That is where behavioral change becomes dangerous. Because once someone starts believing, I deserve more respect because I have more money, empathy can begin fading. Slowly, subtly, and psychological studies consistently show something uncomfortable. As wealth increases, emotional sensitivity toward strangers sometimes decreases. Not always, but often. Because survival pressure disappears, a wealthy person may stop emotionally relating to ordinary struggle. Rent anxiety, debt stress, food insecurity, financial exhaustion. Those experiences become psychologically distant memories, and distance changes empathy. But perhaps the biggest reason money changes behavior so fast is because humans are deeply influenced by status. Money is not just paper, it is symbolic power. It changes social hierarchy instantly, and human beings are extremely sensitive to hierarchy, even subconsciously. People with money often receive preferential treatment everywhere. Restaurants, hotels, business meetings, social circles. The world reacts differently to wealth, and eventually, wealthy people begin reacting differently to themselves. Identity evolves around status. This is one reason sudden wealth can become psychologically destabilizing. Athletes, lottery winners, celebrities, crypto millionaires. Many experience personality shifts rapidly after becoming rich, not because money magically corrupts them, but because their entire social reality changes almost overnight. People begin wanting things from them constantly. Attention becomes transactional. Trust becomes complicated. Even friendships become psychologically confusing. Who genuinely cares? Who wants access? Who wants money? Who wants status proximity? Money introduces social paranoia surprisingly fast, and this often pushes wealthy people into emotional isolation, because once people become extremely successful, authenticity becomes difficult to measure. But there is another strange psychological effect money creates. It changes time perception. Poor people often think short-term because survival requires immediate focus. Rich people gain the ability to think years ahead, and that changes decision-making enormously. A wealthy person can delay gratification comfortably. An emotionally stressed person often cannot. This is why financial stability changes behavior at a neurological level. The brain literally behaves differently under scarcity versus abundance. Scarcity narrows perception, abundance expands it. But abundance can also create detachment from reality, and that is where money becomes psychologically dangerous. Some wealthy individuals slowly stop hearing no. Employees agree with them, people flatter them. Social circles become filtered, and over enough years, reality distortion begins. Power reduces friction. Reduced friction inflates ego. Inflated ego changes behavior. This is why some rich people eventually become emotionally disconnected from ordinary human experience. Not because they planned to, but because wealth insulated them from consequences gradually. And humans psychologically adapt to environments extremely fast. Luxury becomes normal. Privilege becomes invisible. Excess becomes expected. What once felt extraordinary eventually feels ordinary. This phenomenon is called hedonic adaptation, and it affects wealthy people intensely. The first luxury car feels magical. The fifth becomes transportation. The first million feels impossible. The 10th changes surprisingly little emotionally. Humans adapt upward constantly, and adaptation quietly reshapes behavior. Another major way money changes people is through identity expansion. Many people secretly associate wealth with worthiness, so when they finally become financially successful, they feel psychologically validated, as if the world confirmed their importance. This can create confidence. But it can also create superiority complexes. Because once money becomes tied to self-worth, financial success starts influencing morality, relationships, and self-perception. A rich person may unconsciously begin viewing poor people as less disciplined, less intelligent, less capable, even when life circumstances are far more complex than that. This is one reason wealthy individuals sometimes underestimate luck. Because success feels personal. The brain naturally creates narratives explaining achievement. I worked harder. I was smarter. I deserved this. And while effort absolutely matters, timing matters too. Environment matters, opportunity matters, networks matter, luck matters. But ego dislikes randomness, especially successful ego. So the brain rewrites history in ways that preserve identity. And money amplifies this effect. But perhaps the darkest behavioral shift money creates is emotional desensitization. Once someone can buy almost anything, excitement becomes harder to generate. Luxury loses emotional impact. Experiences normalize quickly. Pleasure thresholds rise. And eventually, some wealthy people begin chasing increasingly extreme stimulation. More luxury, more risk, more status, more exclusivity, because ordinary life no longer feels emotionally intense enough. This is one reason some rich people become addicted to power itself. Power becomes the new dopamine source after material pleasure fades, and power changes human behavior faster than almost anything else, because power alters consequences. A normal person may control anger because consequences exist. A powerful person may feel increasingly untouchable, and once humans feel untouchable, behavior changes rapidly. History proves this repeatedly. Politicians, billionaires, celebrities, kings, dictators. Power amplifies existing psychology. It rarely creates character from nothing. It reveals what was already there beneath social restraint. This is why money sometimes appears to change people. In reality, it often reveals hidden versions of them. The generous become more generous. The insecure become more performative. The arrogant become unbearable. The disciplined become dangerous competitors. Money magnifies identity. But modern society romanticizes wealth constantly. People imagine financial success automatically creates happiness, peace, and fulfillment. Reality is more complicated. Money removes many painful problems, but it also introduces psychological challenges most people never anticipate: trust issues, isolation, status pressure, fear of losing wealth, emotional detachment, constant comparison, because even among wealthy people, hierarchy still exists. A millionaire compares themselves to billionaires. A billionaire compares themselves to more powerful billionaires. The comparison machine never fully stops, and comparison changes human behavior constantly. This is why some extremely wealthy people continue working obsessively despite already having more money than they could spend in multiple lifetimes. At some point, it stops being about money. It becomes about identity, competition, legacy, control, status. And status is one of the most addictive psychological drugs on Earth. Humans will sacrifice peace, relationships, morality, and health chasing social dominance, because ancient survival instincts still control modern brains. Money simply became the modern scoreboard, and scoreboards change human behavior immediately. But there is one final psychological truth most people never realize. Money does not change everyone equally. It changes people according to who they already are internally. A secure person may become calmer with wealth. An insecure person may become more performative. A fearful person may become more controlling. An empty person may become addicted to consumption. Money amplifies the emotional patterns already inside the mind, which means wealth itself is not really the transformation. The transformation was already waiting beneath the surface. Money simply removed the mask. And maybe that is why money changes human behavior so fast. Because for the first time, people gain the power to become more of who they truly are underneath social limitation, and that version is not always beautiful.